I got an invite to actually take part in what you might call a seance or a cult gathering.
Imagine leaving home for what should have been a simple 3-hour drive, only to return 10 days later with no memory of where you had been. That is the claim of Alec Newald, a man from New Zealand whose story has shaken believers and skeptics alike. He insists he was abducted by aliens, taken to live among them for over a week, and then returned with knowledge so unsettling that government agencies moved to silence him. Was he delusional, or was he a whistleblower from beyond the stars?
And we were escorted up the steps into this church-like building. I didn't actually see the outside of it.
This is the story of his 10 missing days, the so-called proof he brought back, and the extraordinary secrets he revealed. The vanishing. In February of 1989, Alec Newald set out from Rotorua, New Zealand, on a routine drive north to Auckland. It was a journey he had made many times before, a straightforward 3-hour trip. He carried no luggage, no elaborate plans, nothing to suggest what was about to unfold. But Alec did not arrive in Auckland that afternoon. In fact, he did not arrive at all. 10 full days passed before he reappeared, confused, exhausted, and unable to explain where he had been. For his family and friends, those 10 days were a nightmare. They reported him missing, and police launched a search for his car and any trace of his whereabouts. To them, it looked like a disappearance without logic. When Alec finally returned, he was met not only with relief, but also with suspicion. His neighbors stared in disbelief. His relatives asked over and over, "Where have you been?" The police wanted answers, yet Alec had none. In his own perception, the drive had been continuous. One moment he was on the road, the next he was stepping out in Auckland. To him, only a blink of time had passed. To the rest of the world, 10 days had vanished. Physically, Alec was not the same. He complained of splitting headaches, relentless fatigue, and a strange inability to focus. These were not the signs of a man who had hidden away or simply run off. Something profound had happened, something his body remembered, even if his conscious mind did not. At first, Alec could give no account. His car was another puzzle. Some reports claimed it was never recovered. Others suggested it had been found, though Alec himself could not recall the details. What he knew was this: his life had fractured. For him, time had stood still. For everyone else, 10 days had passed. The whispers began. Some said he had suffered a breakdown. Others suggested foul play. And still others believed something stranger was at work. New Zealand in the 1980s was not a place steeped in UFO lore, but Alec's reappearance defied every ordinary explanation. And soon, fragments of memory began to surface. The fragments. At first, the memories came as flickers, dreamlike flashes that seemed to dissolve as soon as he tried to grasp them, a sensation of weightlessness, strange shafts of light that glowed with no source, a presence lingering just beyond sight, watching him, though he could not see who or what it was. Alec tried to dismiss them as tricks of his mind, the aftershocks of stress or exhaustion. He told himself they were remnants of dreams, fragments conjured by an imagination trying to fill in the 10 lost days. But the visions refused to fade. Each time they returned, they sharpened, taking on texture, sound, and emotion until he could no longer ignore them. Friends described Alec as withdrawn, as though he carried a private world sealed away behind his eyes. He no longer seemed fully present in ordinary conversations. His headaches throbbed without pause. The fatigue clung to him, and a restless energy filled his body like a current that had no outlet. He avoided social gatherings, preferring isolation, and those closest to him whispered that something had changed in him permanently. The fragments grew stronger. Instead of scattered images, they began linking together into sequences, an odd sensation of leaving the body, a voice without sound slipping into his mind, a feeling of being lifted, drawn upward into something vast and unfamiliar. Alec often woke in the middle of the night, his sheets drenched with sweat, as if his body had relived the sensations without his permission. Slowly, painfully, the flickers coalesced into a narrative. A beginning took shape, pressing against the edges of his conscious mind, like water behind a dam waiting to burst through. When Alec finally gave voice to what he remembered, the words shocked not only his family, but soon the wider world. He claimed he had been taken, not kidnapped in the human sense, but removed from Earth entirely. And what he described was not a fleeting encounter of lights in the sky. It was an entire experience of living among beings from elsewhere. The encounter. Alec's first memory was of losing his body. One moment he was in his car, the next his form seemed to dissolve, filtered away as if sifted through an unseen net. He floated, detached, but fully conscious. He described it as being reduced to pure essence. No eyes, no ears, yet somehow able to perceive. Around him stretched a vast, boundless space, softly glowing without any clear source of light. At first, shadows drifted in the distance. Slowly they took shape, figures approaching with deliberate grace. These were not ghosts. As they neared, their features became clear, thin, of average human height, but with proportions unlike anything on Earth. Large heads, narrow, deeply set eyes, broad, smooth faces. Their movements were weightless, fluid. Then came the most startling revelation. They did not speak with mouths. Instead, words appeared directly in Alec's mind, clear, calm, and deliberate. "Welcome," one of them said. Its lips never moved. "I am the designated guardian of this section. Anything you need to make your stay with us more pleasant, ask, and I shall do my best to provide." Alec realized then this was no dream. These beings were intelligent, aware of him, and communicating through pure thought. It felt strange but not invasive, as if his mind had been tuned to their frequency. They told him the glowing garment that now clothed his body, something that had appeared without his putting it on, was not clothing in the human sense. It was a biological, technological interface designed to help him communicate. It allowed him to project his thoughts clearly and receive theirs with precision. Though fear coursed through him, Alec sensed no hostility. They radiated calm and curiosity. They insisted he was free to leave, though they hoped he would stay, for they had much to show him. Inside the alien city. Once Alec accepted that he was no longer on Earth, the void around him transformed. Shapes emerged, curves, spirals, towers, and glowing structures. What came into focus was a city unlike anything humanity had ever built. The scale stunned him. The metropolis stretched endlessly along what seemed like a coastline, its edges fading into the horizon. Circular buildings glowed faintly as though lit from within. Among them rose pyramid-like structures of crystal or tinted glass. Atop their peaks, spiraled towers crowned with enormous orbs radiating energy. These were not decorations. They pulsed with purpose. Everything flowed. The streets curved seamlessly into the architecture. There were no harsh corners, no industrial clutter. The entire city felt alive, humming softly as if its buildings communicated with one another. To Alec, it seemed the structures were not built, but grown, made of semi-organic material that adapted to its inhabitants. The beings guided him calmly, showing no sign of pride. To them, this was ordinary. To Alec, it was breathtaking. He was given quarters of his own, rooms without corners, lit by ambient light and subtly shifting to his needs. The walls themselves seemed responsive, almost aware. Yet this was not a sightseeing tour. Alec soon understood he was here for a reason. He had been chosen to learn, and the knowledge he was given would upend everything he thought he knew about Earth. Earth's hidden history. In this alien city, Alec met a being unlike the others. She called herself Xena, female only in the sense that she conveyed nurturing and guidance. Her presence was calming, her communication precise. She seemed chosen to guide Alec through truths too heavy to face alone. Xena told him his visit was no accident. Earth itself was the reason. Humanity, she explained, was not merely the product of random evolution. It had been designed, shaped, and guided. According to her, Cro-Magnon humans were among the first attempts, vessels designed to carry a spirit capable of growth and learning. Homo sapiens followed, refined, adapted, created to hold memory across generations and carry the seeds of destiny. But there was tragedy. At some point, a darker force intervened. This force, she claimed, feared humanity's potential. It tampered with human DNA, suppressing abilities of consciousness and spirit that should have awakened. What remained was a diminished version of humanity, brilliant, yet disconnected from the fullness it might have achieved. Alec recognized echoes of myths, the fall from Eden, the Sumerian tales of gods shaping humanity, legends of golden ages lost. Xena's story seemed to weave them all together, a history of upliftment, suppression, and survival. Sacred sites on Earth, she said, were not random monuments, but reminders. Pyramids, temples, and megaliths encoded messages for future generations, designed to awaken memory when the time was right. Humanity, she insisted, was on the cusp of rediscovering what had been lost. For Alec, the weight of these revelations was crushing. If Xena spoke truth, then religion, science, and history were only fragments of a much larger, deliberately hidden story. Governments in the shadows. When Alec returned to Earth, he at first kept his story quiet, but fragments slipped out, and when he began to share more openly, something unexpected happened. He was watched. Cars idled outside his home. Strangers appeared in familiar places. His phone lines faltered. Letters vanished. The signs of surveillance were unmistakable. At first, he dismissed it as paranoia, but then came the trap. Alec, once involved in the motor trade, was introduced to a man offering bargain deals on imported cars. The man's name was Jeff Wright. Months later, 6 of those vehicles were declared stolen. Police moved in. What should have been a minor case spiraled into years of court appearances, seized assets, and financial ruin. Only then did the real purpose emerge. Intelligence operatives stepped from the shadows, offering Alec a way out. If he cooperated, if he told them everything he knew of his abduction and the knowledge he had been given, the charges could vanish. His life could return to normal. To Alec, the offer confirmed his fears. If his story were nonsense, why would authorities go to such lengths? Why orchestrate a sting operation just to force him into silence? The answer seemed clear. His story contained truths someone did not want revealed. But Alec refused. He endured the trials, the punishment, even a prison sentence. He would not give them the account they demanded. And so he made a choice. He would go public. The book. Years of pressure, harassment, and intimidation finally pushed Alec Newald into a corner. He realized that as long as his story remained private, he was vulnerable. Authorities could threaten him, frame him, or even erase him without consequence. But if the story was public, if his account was written down, published, and circulated, then silencing him would be far more complicated. His survival depended on exposure. So he did what few abductees had dared before. He put pen to paper and released his testimony in a book titled Co-Evolution, an Interplanetary Adventure. The title alone was provocative, suggesting that humanity's history was not an isolated march of evolution, but a cooperative process shaped by intelligences beyond Earth. Inside its pages, Alec recounted not vague flashes or dreamlike impressions, but a full, structured account of his 10 missing days. He wrote of walking through alien cities, of sleeping in quarters designed by technology beyond imagination, of conversations that unfolded mind to mind with beings who claimed to have shaped humanity itself. He did not stop at words. He provided illustrations of the architecture he claimed to have seen, circular dwellings that glowed faintly in the night, crystalline towers topped with massive orbs that pulsed with energy, and transportation systems that moved without wheels, engines, or visible mechanics. Equally astonishing were the transcripts of his alleged conversations with Xena, the being who had guided him during his stay. Alec transcribed exchanges that touched on genetics, spiritual design, suppressed DNA potential, and the cosmic history of Earth. These were not the ramblings of someone who merely claimed to see lights in the sky. This was a man presenting a complex worldview, a cosmology in which humanity's origins were purposeful, manipulated, and deeply entwined with extraterrestrial intervention. The reaction was immediate and divided. For believers, Alec's book was a revelation. It stood apart from the typical abduction stories that offered little more than fear, confusion, and fragmented images. Co-Evolution read like a coherent memoir of another civilization, a whistleblower's dossier from a world beyond Earth. UFO researchers hailed it as one of the most important first-person accounts ever published. For skeptics, it was fantasy dressed as autobiography. They pointed out that Alec had no physical proof, no alien artifact, nothing that could be tested in a lab. They accused him of borrowing from the tropes of science fiction, crafting a narrative designed to capture imaginations but not to withstand scrutiny. Some went further, suggesting Alec was mentally unstable, suffering from hallucinations or delusions. Yet what disturbed many observers was not the criticism, but the silence. No government agency stepped forward to debunk the book. No intelligence service ridiculed him in public. No mainstream scientist published a detailed takedown. Instead, officialdom seemed to ignore it entirely, as if hoping the story would vanish on its own. To Alec, that silence was the loudest signal of all. If his claims had truly been nonsense, authorities could have easily exposed him, but they did not. The book spread far beyond New Zealand. It circulated among journalists, UFO investigators, spiritual seekers, and conspiracy theorists across the world. Underground networks embraced it as a cornerstone text. Conferences invited Alec to speak. His name became synonymous with alien contact. He never sought fame, yet it found him anyway. He became, reluctantly, a whistleblower. His life forever divided into before and after. The legacy. Decades later, Alec Newald's story remains one of the most polarizing accounts in UFO history. To his supporters, he is a man who risked everything, his reputation, his career, even his freedom, to share a truth that humanity was not ready to hear. They see him as a messenger, entrusted with knowledge that challenges the very foundations of science and religion. To his critics, he is a storyteller, a man who spun personal visions into a narrative that sits halfway between autobiography and science fiction. They argue that his detailed descriptions are not proof of authenticity, but signs of invention, that his drawings of alien cities and his transcripts of telepathic conversations could just as easily have been imagined. Psychologists point to the possibility of hallucinations brought on by stress, or subconscious borrowing from cultural archetypes that filled his mind with ready-made images of extraterrestrials. What makes Alec's account so enduring is precisely this tension. Unlike most abductee testimonies, often vague, disjointed, or limited to fleeting encounters, Alec presented a structured, consistent narrative. He spoke of architecture, technology, philosophy, and even interstellar history. That richness invites belief, but it also invites doubt. And yet, the parallels to other abduction cases are striking. Many abductees across the world have described beings with large heads and narrow eyes. Many recall communication that bypasses language, unfolding as pure thought. And many claim that, after going public, they were harassed, stalked, or discredited. Alec's story does not stand in isolation. It echoes a global pattern. The question, then, is not only whether Alec told the truth, but whether his experience belongs to a broader phenomenon that humanity has yet to understand. Are these stories fragments of a shared reality, or are they psychological archetypes, recurring symbols produced by the human mind under stress? Whatever the explanation, Alec's story refuses to fade. His book continues to circulate. His testimony continues to be cited at conferences, in documentaries, and in UFO research. And his account continues to unsettle because it forces us to confront questions most would rather ignore. Is our history complete, or are there chapters missing, hidden not by accident, but by design? Does our DNA carry scars of interventions we barely understand, and have forces beyond Earth already shaped the trajectory of humanity? Alec Newald's legacy is not improving his story beyond doubt. It is in keeping the question alive. By refusing to recant, by standing firm despite ridicule and suppression, he ensured that his 10 lost days would not vanish into obscurity. Whether visionary or storyteller, whistleblower or dreamer, his testimony endures as a challenge to all of us, to look at the skies, the past, and ourselves with new eyes, and to ask what truths may still be waiting in the shadows. So, what do you believe? Was Alec Newald truly abducted, taken for 10 days to live among beings who revealed Earth's hidden history? Or was his tale a creation of the mind, a blend of imagination, subconscious archetypes, and the mystery of existence? Whatever the truth, Alec never wavered. He stood by his story despite ridicule, surveillance, and punishment. And his testimony continues to spark questions that science and religion have yet to answer. If you found this journey into Alec's missing 10 days fascinating, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned, because the next story may uncover secrets that make you question everything you thought you knew about our world.